Hello everybody, and welcome to Theology 101. Today we are going to talk about the Holy Spirit in the Old Testament. The Hebrew word ruha appears 388 times in the Old Testament. Of those 388 references, 102 of them refer to the Holy Spirit. This word is translated as wind, breath, or spirit. Often, when the Old Testament talks about the Spirit of the Lord or the Spirit of God, the word for spirit is ruha. When the word is not referring to God's Spirit, then it usually refers to the human spirit. This can mean the actual spirit of a human, namely the soul, or it can refer to a person's mood or emotional state. When ruha is translated as breath or wind, it can refer to literal breath or wind, or it can refer figuratively to the Holy Spirit. Now, when you look through each time ruha appears in the Old Testament, we get a picture of the Holy Spirit's role and relationship with God's people in the Old Testament. First, we see that the Holy Spirit gives life. The opening chapter of the Bible gives us this description about creation. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Notice that the Spirit of God, or the Holy Spirit, was involved in creation. Job mentions how the Holy Spirit gives life to people. The Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty gives me life. We see that what is true of God the Father and Jesus, namely that God is a giver of life, is also true of the Holy Spirit. Second, we see that the Holy Spirit judges sin. We see an example of this when corruption started to spread on earth, leading up to the time of Noah. In response to this corruption, we see how God responds. Then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. In response to the corruption on earth, God limits the lifespan of humanity as a form of judgment and to prevent corruption to spread at an exponential rate. But notice that God says that His Spirit, referring to the Holy Spirit, will not abide in man forever. So we see that when people sin, they lose the presence of the Holy Spirit in their lives in the Old Testament. Later, we see how when Israel rebelled against God, that they were sinning against the Holy Spirit. In response to Israel's rebellion, the Holy Spirit judged them. But they rebelled and grieved His Holy Spirit. Therefore, He turned to be their enemy and Himself fought against them. Whenever Israel will gather to recite the law and their history, they will mention how God judged them through the Holy Spirit. Many years you bore with them and warned them by your Spirit through your prophets, yet they will not give ear. Therefore you gave them into the hand of the peoples of the lands. Now the reason why the Holy Spirit judges people when they sin is because sin goes against His nature, just like it goes against the nature of God the Father and God the Son. However, when God's people are not living in sin, we see that the Holy Spirit is a sign of God's presence in their lives. When God commanded Israel to rebuild their temple after the Babylonian exile, God exhorted Zerubbabel and Joshua, who were the high priest and political ruler of Israel at that time. The way He exhorted them is to remind them that the Holy Spirit will empower them to fulfill whatever God commanded. Yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel, declares the Lord. Be strong, O Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest. Be strong, all you people of the land, declares the Lord. Work, for I am with you, declares the Lord of hosts. According to the covenant that I made with you when you came out of Egypt, my Spirit remains in your midst. Fear not. In the Old Testament, we see that the Holy Spirit did not empower everybody all the time. Instead, we see that the Holy Spirit empowers specific people at specific times. This is one key difference between the Holy Spirit's relationship with God's people in the Old and New Testaments. For example, the Holy Spirit empowered Joseph to rule Egypt, craftsmen to build the tabernacle, leaders to rule, judges to preserve righteousness, and prophets to judge. There were typically 4 types of people the Holy Spirit empowered in the Old Testament: judges, prophets, civil leaders, and craftsmen. The Holy Spirit empowered several judges of Israel, including Othniel, Gideon, Jephthah, and Samson. The Holy Spirit empowered prophets like Azariah in 2 Chronicles chapter 15 verses 1-2. Now the Spirit of the Lord came on Azariah, the son of Oded, and he went out to meet Asa and said to him, "Listen to me, Asa and all of Judah and Benjamin. The Lord is with you when you are with Him, and if you seek Him, He will let you find Him. But if you forsake Him, He will forsake you." Then we see the Holy Spirit empower political leaders of Israel. The Holy Spirit empowered Moses, King Saul, and King David. We see in the cases of King Saul and David that the Holy Spirit left them because of certain sins in their lives. Therefore, King David wrote this in his psalm: "Do not cast me away from your presence, and do not take your Holy Spirit from me. Finally, we see the Holy Spirit empower craftsmen like Bezalel to build certain things for God. See, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with ability and intelligence, with knowledge and all craftsmanship to devise artistic designs, to work in gold, silver, and bronze, and cutting stones for setting, and in carving wood to work in every craft. So in summary, we see that the Holy Spirit gives life, judges sin, and is a sign of God's presence in the Old Testament. We also see how the Holy Spirit relates with God's people in the Old Testament differently than he does with the church. In the Old Testament, the Holy Spirit only empowers certain people for a temporary time to fulfill a specific task. This explains why the Holy Spirit can leave people like Samson and David because of sin. However, we do not see any evidence of the Holy Spirit leaving a New Testament believer because he has a different relationship with the church than he did with Israel. What kind of relationship does the Holy Spirit have with the church? This is what I will go over in a future video. Thank you to today's sponsor, Awe and Reverence. They offer a free digital worship music app called Maskill. If you want to find out more, I'll leave some links in the description box below. If you missed a previous video about the Holy Spirit's relationship with Jesus Christ, I'll leave a link here for you to watch. Until next time, see you!